All right, I'm just going to say it. These are not your average 4th of July cupcakes. We're filling them with lemon curd, topping them with sculpted red and blue chocolate, and crowning them with swirls of the fluffiest lemon buttercream you've ever tasted. And yes, I've got thoughts about how store-bought cupcakes are ruining celebrations. More on that later. In today's recipe, I'm sharing my complete step-by-step for lemon cupcakes with chocolate toppers and lemon buttercream frosting, all decked out in red, white, and blue. But here's the catch. We're not just baking. We're engineering cupcakes that impress, travel well, and make people say, "Wait, you made these?" Whether you're prepping for a picnic, a fireworks party, or just need something wildly impressive to post on Instagram, you're in the right place. And don't worry, you don't have to do it all in one day. I'll show you how to break it up into bite-sized tasks that won't break your spirit. Let's get into it. Grab your apron, plug in your KitchenAid, and get ready, because we're going all in today with bold flavors, sharp tools, and maybe a tiny bit of kitchen chaos. Let's bake something unforgettable. Grab your basic baking tools, measuring cups and spoons, a whisk, a few bowls, and your stand mixer. Line 2 cupcake pans with 16 white foil liners, and keep your dough scoop handy for even batter portions. We'll begin with the dry ingredients in a large glass mixing bowl. This is how I bake lately, starting first with mixing the dry ingredients separately, then whisking the wet ones in another bowl before combining everything together. I feel like it gives better consistency in the dough and a more even bake. I'm adding 1 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour. This flour forms the base of our cupcake structure. It's what gives the cupcakes their shape and holds all the other ingredients together. I like to gently fluff it with a spoon before measuring to avoid packing in too much. Next, I whisk in 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Baking soda reacts with the acid from our lemon juice later on, helping the cupcakes rise and giving them a tender crumb. Then in goes 1 teaspoon of baking powder. It adds extra lift for that perfect dome shape and helps our cupcakes stay fluffy even after cooling. And of course, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. It may seem small, but this tiny amount enhances all the sweetness and brings out the citrus notes. I use my favorite balloon hand whisk here to gently blend the dry ingredients. You can also use a larger sifter if you have one. It gives the mixture a really light, airy texture that helps with even baking. Or if you're a beginner baker and don't have any of these tools, don't let fancy gear stop you. A simple fork works just fine. Whisk until everything's fully combined and light. This ensures even distribution of leavening agents. Set that bowl aside. I like to take a second here to admire the dry mix. It's light, fluffy, and already smells subtly like lemon, thanks to the zest in the next step. If you're prepping ingredients ahead of time, you can even cover this bowl and set it aside until you're ready to finish the batter. Next, grab a medium-sized bowl for our wet mix. Seriously, don't reach for that tiny cereal bowl. This mixture grows fast, and unless you want lemon juice all over your counter, go for something roomy. I've had my fair share of citrus tsunamis from underestimating bowl size. Trust me, it's not the kind of cleanup you want when you're halfway through measuring yogurt. A nice medium bowl will keep everything contained and your sanity intact. Crack in 2 room temperature eggs. I always use room temp eggs for better emulsification. They blend more smoothly and help the batter trap air. Next, I add 1/2 cup of plain yogurt. The tanginess complements the lemon and it helps keep the cupcakes incredibly moist. You can use Greek yogurt for extra richness. Then pour in 1/4 cup of milk. This helps loosen the batter slightly so it's easy to scoop and gives a soft, tender texture. I follow that with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. It rounds out the flavor and pairs so nicely with the lemon, adding a soft sweetness in the background. Now, squeeze in 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. This is what gives the cupcakes their signature zing and also activates that baking soda we whisked in earlier. And if you don't know how to get lemon juice out of a lemon, don't worry, I've got you covered. watch my video, How to Squeeze Lemon Juice Easily, for a quick demo and helpful tips. And finally, 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. I zest 2 lemons using my fine zester. It's where all the bright lemon oil lives. Zest gives us the most intense lemon flavor without adding any extra moisture. If you don't know how to do this, or you're not sure you're doing it right, check out my other video, How to Get Perfect Lemon Zest. It's a quick and fun guide that'll save you from zesting your knuckles instead of the lemon. Once everything is in the bowl, I give it a good mix with my hand whisk. I like using the whisk because it gives me better control over the texture. Plus, it's a tiny arm workout. If you don't have a hand whisk, a fork will do the trick. Don't let a missing tool stop you from making great cupcakes. Just steer clear of electric mixers for this part. They tend to overmix the batter, which can lead to dense, chewy cupcakes instead of light and fluffy ones. Take your time here. I whisk until everything is silky and smells like a glass of fresh lemonade. Now grab a large bowl, and I mean large, for mixing the sugar and butter. This isn't just another bowl, this is the bowl, the one that's going to hold everything together by the end. So don't reach for anything flimsy or shallow. If your bowl can barely hold a salad, it's probably not going to survive this cupcake mission. This step matters more than people give it credit for. The sugar needs to really bond with the melted butter. We're not just tossing things together. If you skip this or rush through it, you risk ending up with grainy cupcakes. Not cute, not tasty. I like to think of this part as giving the sugar a warm butter bath. Stir until smooth, and you'll be rewarded with a rich, velvety base. And hey, this can get a little splashy, so give yourself space. No one needs sugar streaks up their arms halfway through a recipe. Pro tip, if you're ever tempted to use a small bowl just to save on dishes, don't. This is your foundation, and we want strong, silky results, not a countertop covered in sugar shrapnel. Big bowl, big results. Let's do it right. Now onto the butter sugar base. In a third mixing bowl, I pour in 1 cup of granulated sugar. This not only sweetens, but helps the cupcakes brown beautifully in the oven. Then I add 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, which I've melted and cooled slightly. The butter adds richness and a smooth mouthfeel. Just be sure it's not hot, or it might cook the eggs when you mix. Whisk it well, and I mean really whisk it. This is the step where your butter and sugar mixture becomes a smooth, dreamy base for the rest of the batter. I use a hand whisk here because it gives me more control and a better feel for the texture. Plus, it's strangely satisfying, like stirring sunshine. If you don't have a whisk, grab a sturdy fork. It'll get the job done just fine. Just avoid electric mixers here. I know they're tempting, but they tend to overwork the mixture at this stage, which can make your cupcakes dense instead of soft and fluffy. Gentle whisking is the goal. Take a minute here. This is that quiet, meditative moment in the kitchen where it's just you, the bowl, and the beginning of something delicious. Now I pour the lemony egg mixture into the sugar butter bowl. With my whisk, I mix until the mixture is fully emulsified and creamy. You'll notice it lightens in color and thickens slightly. That's exactly what we want. Finally, I gradually fold in the dry ingredients. I do this in 3 additions, whisking gently after each one. The batter will thicken, and that's exactly what we want. You can use an electric mixer here, but only on the very lowest speed, and just until the flour disappears. I personally prefer to keep using my hand whisk because I feel like I have more control, and it's easier to stop before going too far. Remember, overmixing here can lead to dense cupcakes, and no one wants a cupcake you could use as a paperweight. I stop mixing as soon as I don't see any more dry streaks, and that's our batter, bright, fragrant, and ready to bake. I honestly could stop right here and just eat it with a spoon, but I'll behave. Break out your trusty 3 tablespoon dough scoop and fill those cupcake liners. I'm using white foil-lined cupcake liners, not just because they match the patriotic color theme perfectly, but because they hold their color during baking. Paper liners tend to fade or go translucent with buttery batters, but foil ones keep everything crisp and photogenic. You know, in case your cupcakes end up on Instagram. I try to be precise when scooping, But let's be honest, sometimes I get carried away, and one cupcake ends up jumbo-sized. That's okay. Into a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven, they go for 13 to 14 minutes. Though, if you're baking at high altitude, like I am here in Colorado, you might need to make a few adjustments. At higher elevations, baked goods tend to rise faster and then collapse if you're not careful. I usually reduce the baking soda by about 1/8 teaspoon and increase the oven temperature by 15 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit to help set the structure a little faster. Keep a close eye on them toward the end and do a quick check at the 12-minute mark just to be safe. Here's my favorite tool moment, the classic toothpick test. It's such a simple trick, but so satisfying when it comes out clean. Let them cool in the pan for 5 minutes, then move them to a wire rack to finish cooling. And don't skip this step. Warm liners trap steam, and that can lead to soggy bottoms, which nobody wants. Time for a little chocolate magic. And yes, this is the part where I get to talk about one of my favorite tools, the Wilton Candy Melts pot. If you don't have one yet, you're seriously missing out. It's been a game changer in my kitchen, especially for decorative chocolate work. I use it every time I need precision and consistency, which is always, let's be honest. I actually love this pot so much that I own 4 of them. Yes, 4. No, you don't have to go crazy like me. One will do just fine. But once you try it, don't be surprised if you start thinking about getting a second one for backup. Even better, I use the dual silicone insert that fits perfectly inside the melting pot. This insert has 2 side-by-side compartments, which means I can melt 2 different colors at the same time without any mess or color mixing. For these cupcakes, I'm going red and blue for that patriotic 4th of July vibe. In the left side of the insert, I add 1 cup of red Wilton candy melts. Then I add 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil. That coconut oil is essential. It thins out the candy just enough to make it smooth and pourable, and it also gives it that glossy finish once set. I always stir with a mini silicone spatula every few minutes while it melts. On the right side of the insert, I add 1/2 cup of royal blue Wilton candy melts. Then I add another 1/2 teaspoon of coconut oil. Same process, same smooth results. But this time, we're making star-shaped toppers. I stir both compartments as they melt, and because the Wilton pot heats evenly and gently, I never worry about scorching the chocolate, which happens all too easily with the microwave. Once everything is melted and smooth, I move quickly. I pour the red chocolate into my silicone chocolate bar mold. Yes, little chocolate bars, perfect size to perch on top of a cupcake without tipping over. I give the mold a few gentle taps to release air bubbles, then scrape the surface clean with a cake spatula. Then I pour the blue chocolate into star-shaped silicone molds. These stars are the perfect accent, and they hold their shape beautifully. Again, pour, tap to settle, scrape the top, and into the fridge they go. I chill both molds in the fridge for about 10 minutes, or until firm to the touch. Once set, I use disposable vinyl gloves to remove them from the molds. Not only does this prevent fingerprints, but it also keeps your warm hands from softening the chocolate. Keep making chocolate shapes until you have enough for all your cupcakes. I usually make a few extras just in case. If one breaks while you're popping it out of the silicone mold, don't stress. Just toss it right back into the melting pot and remelt it. No waste, no problem. Honestly, it's one of my favorite parts. It feels like edible crafting, and you get to snack on the oops pieces while you work. I honestly love this step. The colors are bold, the designs come out so clean, and it feels like I'm prepping little pieces of edible decor. It's fun, it's creative, and it makes the cupcakes look like you bought them from a high-end bakery. Except, surprise, you made them at home with your candy pot and a little extra love. Store the finished chocolate toppers on a plate in a cool, dry place for now. If they end up sitting in a warm spot while waiting for their big cupcake moment, they might start softening or even melting. Remember, they're made of chocolate, and heat is definitely not their best friend. To play it safe, I like to pop them back in the fridge until I'm ready to decorate. That way, they stay firm, glossy, and photo ready. At this point, my cupcakes are beautifully baked and ready to come out of the oven. I carefully pull the pans out and set them on the counter to rest. Let them cool in the pan for about 5 minutes. It helps them finish setting without collapsing. Then I transfer each one to a wire rack so they can cool completely. This step is crucial. Resist the urge to frost while they're still warm, unless you want a melty buttercream puddle instead of a swirl. Did you know cupcakes have been making life sweeter for over 2 centuries? The first time someone wrote about them was way back in 1796 in an American cookbook, where they were called a light cake to be baked in small cups. And get this, before cupcake liners and pans were a thing, people actually baked them in teacups. How fancy is that? The name cupcake really took off in the 19th century, and it had a double meaning. Some used the name because the cakes were literally baked in cups, while others used it to describe recipes that measured ingredients by the cup instead of weighing them. Either way, they made baking a whole lot easier. No need to bust out the kitchen scale. By the 20th century, cupcakes were everywhere. Birthday parties, school events, and bake sales. Then, in the early 2000s, things got serious. Shows like Sex and the City helped make fancy cupcake bakeries a trend. And suddenly, cupcakes weren't just a quick dessert. They became a whole experience. Now, with endless flavors, fillings, and decorations, cupcakes are still stealing the spotlight in bakeries and home kitchens around the world. Let's make the fluffiest, dreamiest lemon buttercream, the kind that makes you want to sneak a spoonful before it even hits a cupcake. First things first, I pull out my KitchenAid stand mixer. I use the 7-quart bowl lift model because it handles big batches like a champ. It's my buttercream beast. The bowl is roomy enough that nothing flies out when I crank it to high speed, and the paddle attachment creates the smoothest texture. Into the bowl goes 1.5 cups of room temperature unsalted butter. I always make sure my butter is truly at room temp, soft to the touch but not melting. This helps the butter whip up faster and trap more air, which gives us that light, creamy texture. I set the mixer to medium and beat the butter for a full 5 minutes. You'll see it change color and fluff up, like pale yellow frosting clouds. Once it's doubled in volume, I sprinkle in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, just enough to cut through the sweetness and enhance the lemony flavor we're about to add. Then I slowly pour in 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice. I strain it first to keep the buttercream silky smooth. No surprise pulp chunks here. The lemon juice brings that bright, zippy contrast that balances the sweetness perfectly. It also loosens the butter a bit, which makes it easier to incorporate the sugar in the next step. Now, for the sugar, I use 6 cups of powdered sugar, but I never add it all at once. Instead, I go slowly, about 1/2 cup at a time. This not only prevents a sugar blizzard from erupting all over your kitchen, but it also helps the mixer do a more thorough job with each batch. Each addition gets mixed in on low speed until it's mostly absorbed. You'll see the frosting gradually thicken and smooth out with every step. I always stop to scrape down the sides of the bowl with a spatula between additions. Don't skip this. It ensures that every bit of sugar is evenly incorporated, especially those sneaky pockets hiding near the bottom. The slower pace also lets you control the texture more precisely. Some days, depending on humidity or how soft your butter was, you might not even need the full 6 cups. So add with intention and taste as you go if you're curious. Just be warned, it's very hard to stop once you do. Let's talk storage. Because you've just put so much love into these cupcakes, the last thing we want is dry cake or melted frosting. If your kitchen stays cool, you can keep the decorated cupcakes at room temperature in an airtight container for about 4 to 5 days. I like to use cupcake storage containers with tall lids so the frosting stays protected. Place a piece of parchment paper between layers if you're stacking them. If your home runs warm or it's peak summer, definitely go with the fridge. Store the cupcakes in a container and place it in the main compartment, not the door. Too much temperature fluctuation. Just be sure to take them out at least 30 minutes before serving, so the buttercream softens and the texture returns to its light, fluffy self. Also, always label your container with the date. I use painter's tape and a Sharpie. It's a small habit that saves so much second guessing later, especially when you're juggling multiple batches. Now, if you have leftover frosting, don't toss it. Scoop it into a freezer-safe zip-top bag. Press out the air and freeze it for up to 2 months. When you're ready to use it, thaw in the fridge overnight and re-whip it in your stand mixer to bring it back to life. As for those chocolate toppers, store them in a single layer in an airtight container in the fridge. Use wax paper between layers to avoid breakage. They'll stay perfect for weeks and can top brownies, pancakes, or even get stirred into vanilla ice cream. Long story short, you've got options, and that means you're ready for surprise guests or a second dessert moment when the craving hits. Once all the sugar is in and mixed, I turn the mixer to high and let it go for 8 full minutes. This is the part where the magic happens. That long whipping time makes the frosting incredibly fluffy, stable, and easy to pipe. You'll notice it holds its shape, but still feels airy, perfect for tall, dramatic swirls. Okay, let's talk buttercream struggles, because if you've ever had frosting either melting off your cupcakes or refusing to come out of the piping bag, you know exactly what I mean. I used to think buttercream was foolproof until I found myself dealing with frosting that either slid right off my cupcakes or refused to come out of the piping bag. Turns out the temperature in my kitchen has more say in how my buttercream behaves than I do. Some days, I swear it has a mind of its own. Here's what I've learned the hard way. Too warm? Say goodbye to perfect swirls. If my kitchen feels like a sauna, maybe it's summer, or I've had the oven cranked all day, my buttercream turns into a melty, uncooperative mess. Here's what happens. My beautifully piped swirls start drooping like sad little puddles. The frosting spreads instead of holding its shape. Sometimes it even starts to separate and look greasy, which is basically a baker's worst nightmare. How I save it. I pop it in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes to firm it up before piping. I try not to hold the piping bag too long, because fun fact, warm hands make buttercream melt faster. If my kitchen feels too warm, I move to a cooler spot or turn on a fan to keep things under control. Too cold? Get ready for a hand workout. On the flip side, if my kitchen is freezing, which, let's be real, happens a lot in winter, my buttercream goes completely stiff. Trying to pipe it feels like squeezing cement out of a tiny hole. Honestly, I could skip arm day at the gym and just battle with stiff buttercream instead. The frosting refuses to come out of the piping bag. No matter how hard I squeeze, it looks rough or crumbly instead of smooth and silky. My swirls break apart mid-pipe because the frosting is just too stiff to flow properly. How I fix it? I let the buttercream sit at room temp for 10 to 15 minutes so it softens a bit. If it's still too stiff, I give it a quick mix with my electric mixer to fluff it back up. Sometimes I just hold the piping bag in my hands for a few minutes to warm it up slightly. The magic happens when my kitchen is around 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. That's when buttercream is firm enough to hold its shape, but soft enough to pipe smoothly, aka the dream frosting consistency. So, if your buttercream starts giving you attitude, don't panic. Just check your kitchen temp before deciding your baking skills have abandoned you. Or, before questioning your entire baking existence. A little tweak, chilling it down or warming it up, might be all you need to keep those cupcakes looking bakery perfect. Trust me, it's a game changer. Finally, I transfer the lemon buttercream into a 21-inch piping bag fitted with my go-to jumbo 9-foot tip. I love using jumbo piping tips for decorating cupcakes. They create those gorgeous tall swirls that look super polished and bakery style, even if you're just piping at home. The large opening also means less effort squeezing and smoother, more even piping. My favorite piping bag size these days is 21 inches. It gives me plenty of space to transfer all the frosting in without overfilling, which makes the whole process less messy and more manageable. The bags I use are a little sticky on the outside, which gives a better grip. And honestly, most of the time, I don't even need a piping bag tie. I just twist the top and go. But in this video, I'm showing how to use a piping bag with a tie because it's super helpful for beginners. It keeps everything in place and prevents frosting from oozing out the top mid-squeeze. Trust me, one too many mid-squeeze explosions taught me that lesson. Frosting on the walls, the cabinets, and yes, even the ceiling. Don't be like me on frosting day one. A bag tie will save your sanity in your kitchen. And just like that, our buttercream is ready to go. Soft, zingy, cloud-like, and honestly, very hard to resist. By now, your cupcakes should be totally cool, and I mean completely cool. I use a digital thermometer for this part and wait until they reach about 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 degrees Celsius or lower before decorating. If they're even slightly warm, the buttercream will melt and slide off, and that's a heartbreak we can all avoid. Before piping the buttercream, I like to add a fun little surprise inside each cupcake. I use a simple apple core to gently remove the center of each cupcake. I push down just about halfway, not too deep, then give it a little twist and lift straight up to remove the core. If the center doesn't come out cleanly, I use a small spoon or paring knife to help loosen it. You want just enough space for a dollop of lemon curd, but still leave enough cake around the edges so the cupcake holds its shape. And don't throw away that little cake plug you just removed. Gently set it aside. We're going to use it in just a minute to seal the top of the lemon curd filling like a tiny cupcake lid. It keeps the filling neatly tucked inside and helps create a flat surface for piping that buttercream swirl on top. Then, using a disposable piping bag, nothing fancy, just a regular one I have on hand, I pipe in some store-bought lemon curd. It's convenient, delicious, and saves time when you've already got a full cupcake lineup to manage. I just spoon the lemon curd into the piping bag, fold the top over a tall glass to hold it open, and use a spatula to scrape every last bit inside. No piping tip needed. Just snip off the end of the bag with scissors to create a small opening. That bright, tangy center is such a delightful contrast to the sweet, fluffy buttercream. But if you're feeling ambitious and want to go all the way homemade, you can definitely make your own lemon curd from scratch. I'll include a link to my favorite lemon curd recipe in the description for those ready to take that extra step. To fill each cupcake with lemon curd, I hold the piping bag filled with curd just above the center opening we created with the apple corer. Gently squeeze the bag and fill until the curd reaches just below the top of the hole, usually about a teaspoon or so. You will feel a little resistance when it's full, and that's your cue to stop. Be careful not to overfill, or the curd might leak out when we seal it. If you don't want to use a piping bag, you can also spoon the lemon curd in. Just be neat about it and try to center the filling. Once they're all filled, we'll seal each one with that little cake plug we saved earlier. I seal the cupcake back up by placing a small piece of the cupcake core right over the lemon curd, like a little cap. After placing it, I gently press it down, just enough to secure it without squishing the filling. You want it to sit flush with the top of the cupcake, so you have a nice flat surface for piping. Think of it like putting the lid back on a tiny lemon-filled treasure chest. Snug, but not stuffed. Once that's done, I grab my prepared piping bag of lemon buttercream and pipe a tall swirl on top. Start in the center, swirl outward, and spiral up for height. If your kitchen is warm, pop your piping bag in the fridge for a few minutes between batches to keep the buttercream firm. It makes all the difference in getting clean, defined swirls. Nobody wants a droopy swirl that melts before the party even starts. But on the flip side, if your kitchen is too cool, like mine often is, you might have the opposite problem. In my studio, it's so chilly I sometimes need to run a space heater even in the middle of summer just to get the buttercream to pipe smoothly. Seriously, I'm over here decorating cupcakes in July, wearing fuzzy socks and defrosting buttercream like it's the middle of December. When the frosting is too cold, it stiffens up and refuses to cooperate. No pretty swirls, just broken, clumpy sadness. So if you're dealing with a cooler kitchen, let the piping bag sit out for a few minutes to soften slightly, or gently warm it with your hands, like you're cradling a tiny frosting baby. Trust me, it works. Once frosted, I finish each cupcake with one red chocolate mini bar and a couple of those gorgeous blue stars. Just gently press them into the top of the frosting, and just like that, we've gone from lemon cupcake to patriotic showstopper. And there you have it, lemon cupcakes that are as fun to decorate as they are to eat, topped with the cutest patriotic chocolate toppers. These will light up your dessert table like sparklers on the 4th of July. But hey, I know it's a lot. Chocolate toppers, lemon, curd, filling, buttercream, baking. You don't have to do everything in one day. Honestly, I never do. Make the chocolate toppers a day or two ahead and store them in the fridge. Whip up your buttercream the night before and stash it in the fridge until you're ready to re-whip. Then bake your cupcakes fresh the morning of your event. Planning and prepping are your best friends in the kitchen, especially when it comes to detailed projects like these. Spread it out over a few days and save your energy for the fun part, decorating and eating. If you enjoyed this recipe, hit that like button and subscribe for more baking adventures and misadventures, let's be real. I'd love to know in the comments, are you team cupcake, pie, or do you go straight for the s'mores? And hey, if you make these, tag me. I want to see your creations, your toppers, your frosting swirls, and even your kitchen mess. We've all been there. Happy baking and happy 4th of July.